Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. As we like to say, Tesla doesn't advertise, and all their sales have come in organically from word of mouth, showrooms, seeing them drive around, etc. In fact, even to this day, the average consumer is still unaware as to what a Tesla is truly capable of. Whenever I take anyone out in my Tesla, they're still very surprised as to what it's capable of, the functionality, and even just my basic autopilot. And of course, they're all totally shocked whenever I put my foot down, what of it being a performance model. We often think of Tesla with various demand levers like waiting lists and the massive margins and high prices, except now we've already got through those first two. We still have one remaining: advertising. Elon has even mentioned Tesla may one day advertise, and he says it would likely be more of an infomercial style as to educate the consumer rather than just manipulate them with celebrities and compelling rhetoric, and I think that would be best. As like I said, the majority of people still do not understand what a Tesla really is, especially compared to other electric cars. And not just compared to internal combustion vehicles, but also other electric cars. The thing is, every time legacy brands actually do advertise their electric cars, those credible auto companies are giving their badge of approval, saying that EVs are indeed the future, which then in turn makes Tesla look like the future, without Tesla having to advertise or pay a cent. And we've just had another rendition of EV commercials from the Superbowl, which seems to always increase Tesla's popularity. So let's just see what Legacy are telling their customers about EVs. We'll start with Stellantis' Ram ad, formerly Chrysler of course, and their new electric Ram. They've taken the comedy approach with using a pun of premature electrification, which is kind of funny, and trying to convince consumers who may not have previously been interested in an electric vehicle to now give it a chance. There is their Ram Revolution, which I actually have to say does look quite cool, in fact really nice. Even the interior looks minimalist. With no buttons, I'm actually quite impressed. Except it appears to be a concept car. Their actual electric car is the Ram 1500 REV, which looks just like a regular pickup truck. The concept version didn't seem to look that extreme, like it was going to be hard to produce or anything. I have no idea why they didn't stick with that shape. And then the interior goes from looking awesome to one of the most hideous I've ever seen, with the most ugly screen and buttons that look like an afterthought, stuck on over the air vents. I think this car actually has more buttons than their ICE versions. Oh, and it's not even out until Q4, and that's Q4 2024. I guess that explains why it's premature. Then we have the new Hyundai Ionic 6 ad. We have a big celebrity endorsement from Kevin Bacon. This is actually a reasonably impressive EV, as it is supposedly meant to reach 361 miles of range, EPA, and supposedly on a 77 kilowatt-hour battery. That is actually quite impressive. It's even a few miles more than the Model 3 long range. How did they beat Tesla? Well, that's just for a rear-wheel drive version, whereas the Tesla is all-wheel drive. Oh, and still using 6-year-old technology. It looks okay, or at least I could see how it may appeal to some markets. Although the rear tail kind of looks like a Porsche, but they appear to have added an additional spoiler in there too, which looks a bit funny. There's still far too many buttons in the cabin, and in my opinion, it does look a bit cheap. Then we move on to the Jeep, demonstrating their 4xe versions of the Wrangler and Cherokee. They don't appear to use any of the advantages available in redesigning a car to be all electric. They look fairly identical to their ICE versions, which tells me they're not taking electric seriously. They just showcase the vehicles driving through nature with animals, listening to the song Electric Boogie. Nothing is even said on the ad. It's actually kind of strange how they wouldn't mention anything at all. The end of the ad with the text, "Freedom is electric," which means absolutely nothing and has nothing to do with what the ad showed. This is Stellantis again, who really are going to struggle to adopt an electric future. Then we have General Motors, again a big celebrity name to add reputation into you believing what they're doing, from Will Ferrell. Now, General Motors and the CEO Mary Barra talk a big game about their EV future, and they were ahead of most when it came to the Chevrolet Bolt. For the record, if you include the full tax credit savings of $7,500, the Bolt is now for sale for under $20,000. Along with all the cost savings associated with an electric car, that is pretty good value. Yet it still doesn't come close to the number of sales that we see from a Model Y, priced over twice as much. Anyway, the GM ad seems to have some cross-advertising with Netflix. Now, when I initially saw this, I thought it was kind of impressive, as I assumed this meant that GM are going to allow a Netflix app in their cars for people to watch when it parked in the car, like Tesla have offered for years. But that doesn't appear to be the case. Instead, it's going through various Netflix shows and scenes, showing off various models in each scene, and saying that Netflix are planning on showing more EVs in their shows. They first showed the electric GMC Sierra, available spring 2024, supposedly 400 miles of range, and it's a big truck, so the battery will have to be huge. Then, in a Squid Game scene, they show the Chevrolet Equinox, which comes out in fall 2023. It's meant to start at around $30,000 supposedly, and is better looking than the Bolt. After tax credits, it's quite an affordable electric crossover. I wonder how many they make. Then they show the Cadillac Lyriq, which is still not meant to be out until 2024, and now the starting price is higher than the Model Y for a lot less car at $59,000, and the Model Y equivalent spec is around $75,000. Then we see the electric Silverado in a Stranger Things scene. I think the Silverado is actually not a bad looking pickup truck, at least as far as pickup trucks generally go. We saw this ad last year with a Sopranos theme, and this is supposedly coming out in 2023. And at the end, we actually get to see an electric vehicle that they are currently making, albeit in very minute quantities, the excessive electric Hummer. We should also address the Dawn project, the $7 million smear campaign against Tesla's FSD, showing the car running over children and swerving onto oncoming traffic. Dan O'Dow, the billionaire who funded the campaign, also owns a competing company writing self-driving software. It's also hard to know if these Teslas are really even in full self-driving mode. This can be easily taken out of context. Okay, if they truly are this dangerous, then I do think Tesla should address this, but this feels like there is a much larger ulterior motive here. However, perhaps there is no such thing as bad publicity, and now more people are aware that Tesla does offer full self-driving. I know it's far from perfect, but many of you have it yourselves, and you tell me just how good it is, or even post videos on YouTube and Twitter too. As you've seen, I've rarely included FSD into many of my valuations for Tesla, and refer to it more of a lottery ticket. But even if it's still a few years away, the fact it could actually happen is a huge deal. In my opinion, these ads are all terrible, as in a terrible demonstration as to what these companies are doing in the way of electric. I think it's more just to show the world, and perhaps their shareholders, that they are aware electric vehicles are the future, and are on top of the case, obviously. Except they really aren't. Basically, none of these cars are barely even for sale. The only one of the manufacturers that I think actually perhaps genuinely are trying is perhaps Hyundai. It's like they're just trying to show off how many different kinds of electric cars they can make, and how they're not worried about the elephant in the room, aka Tesla, who's been eating up all their market share. Ford have actually done the best job and have been selling a reasonable number of Mustang Mach-E's, and done a pretty good job on the Ford F-150 Lightning. However, I don't believe they even had any electric car commercials. All this has done is remind me just how far ahead Tesla is when it comes to electric. Okay, the Chinese EVs have managed to ramp up considerably and offer lower prices, but they're barely making a profit, and most aren't even doing that, and they drive nothing close to a Tesla. Tesla is miles ahead still, except soon will be revealed Tesla's third generation vehicle, which will leapfrog them further again. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.